Hey guys.
Hi.
Good morning.
Morning guys. How are you feeling?
Good. I am getting ready to head home for the holiday week. So just kind of a little end of year travel frazzled, but like very excited to be here. Otherwise, feeling really happy. How are you?
I'm really happy too. I'm just so excited to have this opportunity to sit down and just talk with the head of community, Liz Friedland, and one of the co-founders of Landing, Miri Buckland. Landing is a really great platform that's just going to like viralize in this past year, and just I just wanted to like get to know it better. Like
Uh,
the internet can be more involved with landing, and it's free and comfort space that it gives.
yeah, we're so excited, really excited to talk to you and just share more about it. And like we've shared with you before, it just like means a ton to have you helping to elevate our story and sharing more about us with the world. We're so grateful.
Especially if you're so involved already. It's like the best way for something like this to happen. So obviously we can talk a little bit more about that. But yeah, just really glad that it's you who's writing about landing.
Yeah.
I'm honored. Guys. Okay.
We're honored.
We're honored. No, you're honored.
Okay. For starters, what inspired the creation of landing?
Yes. Okay. So we'll keep a long story short. But the like through line, I would say, of landing from the very beginning to where it is now is all about like unlocking creativity through community, and this like core belief that no one is born with or without creativity, but it's something that you create and you form and cultivate in community with other people. And so originally when we started landing, we were thinking about the problem of creativity in terms of creating physical spaces that you love. So how can I, as someone who's moved into a new empty apartment, create it to be a space that I really love? And that was something that's a real pain point for a lot of people. And so we started building this interior design mood boarding platform where you could create designs for your space and then buy all the furniture. But we built it with this flexibility to upload any image you want into the mood board. So we thought people would upload paint or a sofa or something they already had. And we just saw people creating all sorts of different mood boards for fun. So they were creating like vision boards and fashion boards and book boards and travel boards. And so really overnight, landing became so much more than just about interior design, and also a space that's so much more social and so much more fun than a really practical, just a practical use case. Some people do still use it for practical things, but it kind of blossomed, I would say, overnight into this like really different platform and social space. And so for the last year or so, we've really been building landing to be this hub and this platform for creativity and community. I would say one of the other turning points for us has also been this year when we launched our Discord community, which Liz led, and she can talk a lot more about. But that was really when we started to unlock the core community of landing and allow people to connect much more freely and more deeply. And that was kind of like the next chapter of landing when we went from you guys froze. So I'm back. When we went from basically just about creativity and expressing yourself to connecting with people over creativity. And so that's really what's informed the third iteration or third chapter, I would say, of landing, which is going to be our app coming in the new year.
That's just so interesting to have a platform evolved by the community and just trying to like get it different meanings and different usings. And so that said, what does landing represent?
Wow. Oh my gosh. I think
so many things.
Yeah. I think to me, landing really represents this like freedom to play and create with other people. And it represents a welcoming and like warm home on the internet, I think, in many ways, where everybody's welcome and everybody's welcome to express themselves like very freely in a visual way, which I think is both like playful and like different to what you see elsewhere. So I think it's that that to me is a core representation of the people, one, who are building Landing, our team, but also the community who are building Landing. So it's a representation of all of us, and that like welcoming spirit and freedom of expression is something that has.
Yeah. I would build on to, I think like what Miri said. I think Landing like represents so much to all of us. Like, I think like when we started hearing creators describe Landing as like, you know, my safe space or the kindest place on the internet, like we hear that time and time again. And I think that like, to me, it just like really represents, I think like, especially in this moment, people are looking for the first time in like my lifetime and probably our lifetimes for a different alternative to their online experiences. And so I think like that has really become true and crystallized even more so, I think, in the past like 6 months. And so again, I think like Landing has also evolved to come to represent like an alternative to the existing sort of social media, you know, incumbents or like existing social media landscape that we think is sort of like the direction of the future of socials, which is like niche and interest based as opposed to social, as opposed to like network based and like who you know in your own like personal network, and, you know, community over like performative, you know, nature of social media, and authenticity over, you know, over how kind of social media typically tends to be. And so I think like, to me, I mean, and I think to our entire team, like it's really sort of, it has come to represent so much more over time. And it has taught us that like people are really looking for something different. And I think one of the things that stands out the most is like, it represents like a hole that people didn't know they needed to fill in their life. Like so many of our community members come in and they're like, I didn't even know this is like exactly what I wanted, but I didn't even necessarily know that it was something I was missing, but now it adds so much value to my life that like, I can't imagine not having, you know what I mean? But I think it is a bit of like a discovery for people that this type of thing can exist and that they can find this type of community and experience online.
Totally. And putting ourselves out there in a platform that's just based on community can be intimidating, but Landing and Landing users, and especially Limelight ambassadors, have felt the entering of Landing welcoming and safe, just to like, it's okay to put yourself out there and to show your interest and to show who you are as a person visually too. And so with that said, why was it important to build Landing as a social network and create a strong community?
It's so interesting because I think like Landing wouldn't exist today as it is without our community. And I think, you know, to what I said before, the social piece really came from what our users were telling us. Like our users were saying, I desperately want to see what other people are creating here. And originally it was a very
I'll pick up while Miri hops back on. Perhaps originally it was like a very small community of creators. Like our first sort of entry into like community as part of Landing was we had, you know, 30, 35 of our super users at the time, like enter a Slack community with us. And it was the first time that I think this was our first foray into the Limelight Ambassador program and work. But it was the first time that we had brought, you know, we had for a very long time talked to many, hundreds of our users and our community members. But this was the first time that we had brought, you know, 35 of our community members into one single space. And so I think we just like learned a ton about the fact that like, this was a community that really meant a lot to them. And it was a place where they wanted to like build those relationships and make those friends. Mir, you can completely pick back up. I was just saying that I think it started kind of with our Slack, and then like we learned so much through that and eventually migrated to Discord, and I'll pass back to you.
I think it's interesting, like from the very
Miri might just pop in and pop up with her connection, Wi-Fi connection.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. But would you guys expecting for landing to become from interior designing to community based?
Do we expect that, you're saying?
Yeah.
No. I think we always knew that people, even in the time of interior design, we knew that people would be interested in sharing what they were creating with other people. Because when you're designing your home, you're often doing that with someone you're living with, or you might be sending it to friends and asking for their input or feedback. And like very early on, you could actually like collaborate within landing creation and like invite someone in to like look at your creations. That's not true today as we've like evolved. But yeah, I think that from very early on, we had a sense that people would want to like create in community. We definitely could not have expected that it would have evolved in the way that it did, though. And I think there was a piece of this sort of pandemic that was an important moment, an important turning point too, which is literally that people, I think, starting in 2020, which happened to be as we were kind of pivoting from only being interior design to being a lot of different kind of verticals represented in landing, verticals like fashion, books, music, et cetera. What we saw was that people were just like looking for online space, like people were lonely, you know? So like people were just, again, there's sort of a confluence of like strategy and moments that kind of come together, but people were looking for, I think, community in a very different way than they had been before. And people were finding that community online during the pandemic in new and different ways. And landing was part of people finding a new and different type of community, and, you know, has since kind of carried through. So yeah, we've just like learned a lot about what people are even looking for in community online. And I frankly think that it has, what people are looking for online and community is constantly changing right now. So it's just like a really interesting time to be doing that work.
The one thing I would say that I was originally saying and then got cut off a million times, but here we are, was that I think from the very beginning, I have to like give credit to our very early team for being like extremely user focused and user led. Like at the very beginning, when we were doing interior design, we were driving U-Hauls around with our users, understanding how they wanted to furnish their spaces. When it came to like the furnishing platform, we were the design concierges. We were in there helping them. When it came to building the social platform, it was all through, like every change of landing has come through listening and getting to know and just like being with our users. And I think that that's a really important skill and something to like foster in a really early teams around just like the humility to listen and the humility to like ask the questions and not be like just building something behind the scenes, but to be building it with the people who are using it and who want it. And I think that that is really cool to me to then see that happening, to see that like ethos throughout our team, where the engineers are in the Discord talking about the bug they fixed or the feature they built, and everybody has that kind of sense of like building it together. And that to me is a much more fun company to build and a team to build than it is for us just to build like an app by ourselves.
Totally. And talking a little bit about behind the scenes, like what could users of Landing expect with the launch of the Landing mobile app?
Yeah. It's super exciting. Obviously, a mobile app is something that our users have been begging us for a really long time. And really the goal of the app is all about bringing the magic that we've seen of community in Discord into the landing experience. And so, as you know, so far we've had our web app and we've had the Discord where people are kind of connecting, and it's really about like mixing those two things together in our own space. So it's going to have the magic of visuals and the magic of connection, all around these niche interests, which, as Liz was saying, is like where we see the future of social media is this kind of collective media angle where people are building social platforms together and collectively, and they're also about like connecting over shared interests and niche interests. So the app is not going to be about board creation. It's going to be about sharing visual ideas and connecting over them and chatting about them. So you can imagine, and we're going to start sharing some screenshots of this, so we could even share some with you for the article, but it's going to be a selection of different niches. You can imagine a Swifties space, as we call them, or one about like a playlist and listening party or outfit of the day or whatever it is, whatever niche interest. And there'll be both visuals and a kind of chat and connection element too.
We're
very excited about it.
We're extremely excited. And I think I would add to what Miri is saying, in the sense that, like, I think we're extremely excited to be starting with a new component of the landing experience on mobile, and like basically expanding, we say like expanding the landing verse, which is like expanding the suite of things that you can do within Landing's platform as a whole. And I think we had to make a very strategic decision about, like, are we going to start with creation on mobile, or are we going to start with something else? And that was a very hard trade-off, I think, in some ways. But I think our team was like very, again, guided by users, understanding that like we wanted to bring more of the community actually into the landing experience. Mobile presented an opportunity for us to actually like build something different, as opposed to just recreating part of the experience that exists on web. And so the two experiences are like extremely complementary, and, you know, one feeds into the other. And so I think it's really cool because like the mobile experience will be different than the desktop experience. And it's not just like a copy paste at the moment to start. And so I think, yeah, we're just very excited that it basically allows us to like open up another experience within Landing's platform and give people the opportunity to kind of give people and our team the opportunity to like test something new and like try it and see what the community feedback is.
That's so cool. And actually getting the community feedback and getting the first look of the mobile app, and just like talking with the team and the engineerings and Discord, like, hey, this is something that I saw on the app. It just like helps you to like understand that you're building something really cool, or at least that's how I feel. And so talking more technically, what makes Landing's desktop version different than the soon-to-be launched app?
Yeah, so the desktop version I would describe as, you know, the place where you could come and create a board. So you go in there, you go into the studio, you upload your images, you're creating a mood board of various different images, and also like potentially adding links to the product and everything. So it's all about creation, like creation use case, and that's where everybody's creating these thousands of boards like every week. The mobile app is not about creation, it's about chat, it's about connection, it's about sharing boards that have already been made, it's about discovery from those boards. So I would think a bit about it not as like creating a mood board itself, but more of a curation and connection place. So I think you can think web creation, app curation, and connection. And they kind of work together to bring all three of those pieces into the landing verse, as we would call it.
And I think curation is actually like between like creation, curation, and community. I think curation is actually the one that like bridges both there's community elements of the web version, which is like commenting, which is great. But I think there's a curation element across both, like on mobile, you know, curation of like communities around like specific niche interests or passion areas, and kind of curating content associated with those niches and passion areas. And then you think about curation on web, which is like being able to add like items to the community library and kind of like curate items you love and make boards with like products that you're really obsessed with right now. Or so I think that's one format. And then people creating kind of collections of boards that they love on their, you know, in their landing accounts and their profiles that show up. I think that's another form of like curation. So I do think there's like a lot of different definitions of curation that exist within the landing platform. And I definitely think we're seeing like curation as a general trend in the zeitgeist as well. So it's not surprising to us to see like a lot of other platforms kind of popping up around the idea of curation as like a really powerful creator skill.
Yeah, I think the thing to note also is like similarly with the website, like we're going to be very much like listening to our users and led by our users in terms of what use cases they really want and what they use like most and how they find it most valuable. And so I think the amazing thing is like, as you know, we have we're testing it with our Limelight ambassadors and with like the earliest beta users, and that's really cool because we get to see how they're using it. We can be very flexible and adaptive based on what people are using, and like that's how we always build things. We're reacting quickly and listening really hard. And so I think the most exciting thing to me is like we have all these hypotheses of like how people will use the mobile app and how they'll use it in conjunction with web, and what we get to discover is like how that actually plays out.
That's so cool. And I feel like lending has a space for everyone, or you can find anything, anyone, whatever you are interested in. Sometimes the board has links to like fashion trends and fashion clothing that you were looking for and you didn't know, and you add to the cart. And so technically speaking, what if I'm a person that's not like artistically inclined? In what ways lending can be used other than vision boards or mood boards?
Great question, because it's so much more than that. And I think right now, especially this month, we see like so many people making their vision boards, and that's amazing. But like you said, there are like so many thousands and thousands of different niches on landings where you'll find hundreds of people making boards around, you know, whimsy goth fashion with all the links to the things you need. And that's like the coolest part. It's like we feel like people can come to landing and express these really niche corners of themselves and their interests and their identity. And I think some of the like other main use cases that we see, and the cool, actually one other thing I'll say, a very cool thing that we've noticed is that we start to see trends trending in landing before they're like really trending anywhere else. So from looking at what people are searching for or looking at what people are creating around, we can start to see the seeds of these trends of like Wednesday popping up or coquette fashion in our data and in our feeds and in our boards super quickly. And that's really interesting because that gives us a lot of like powerful information in terms of like how we can create these spaces for people to connect over things that they're only just realizing that they're really excited about. And so some of the other ones we see a lot of like fashion, we see a lot of like seasonal things like Christmas outfits, winter outfits, spring fashion, that kind of stuff. We also see, oh, they just turned the lights. We also see a lot of like playlist and music boards. We see a lot of book boards of like my to be read list or my beauty favorites. We see some like, I would say like routine almost focus boards where it's like my favorite things to do, or like cozy season, all that kind of stuff. And so there's a really lot, and fandoms too. So a lot of fandom boards around Harry Styles, Taylor Swift, as I'm sure you've seen in the feed.
Yeah, I think 100% like +1 to everything that Miri has said. I think like we're really excited to see elements of kind of shoppability within landing. Like you said, Mina, number one is like creators will link out to products that they love from their boards. And it's like a very organic way of making product recommendations, right? It's not like fake ad thing. It's like Mina makes a board with a t-shirt that you love and like your friends get to see that, right? But that's true for books. It's true for like people link out to books, people link out to musicians and playlists and artists and albums that they love. So I definitely think there's like and we have a handful of brands, like small brands that we've seen like pop up on landing that in some ways use it as like a new and creative visual storefront for their products or their stores. So that is really exciting. And we love kind of finding people who are using it that way and just like learning a little bit more about them. And I would say the last thing that's very interesting to me that I am curious to see where it goes is like landing is a very cool tool for creating like user generated content, UGC. And I think you're seeing like a rise in UGC as like a trend within brands and how they're trying to represent themselves on the internet. And so I definitely think there's like a there for people who are these beautiful creators on landing who are making insanely like artistic, beautiful boards, but that may also include like products or brands they love. Like, I think there's like a potential sort of world where our users and our creators explore a UGC pathway through the things that they are making on landing.
That's so interesting to like actually interact and see like brands and local brands like popping in on my landing, you can say For You page. That's the only word that came to mind. But like, yeah, talking a little bit about the community, what effect does Limelight Ambassadors' contribution have on Landing's growth? Do they stimulate it or motivate it in any way?
I'll start and then, or Mira, do you want to jump in? You first? Okay.
No, I was saying I'll let you answer first.
Okay, and then feel free to layer in too. I think like we've said before, like our community is the heart of Landing and our LAs are like the heart of the community. We're really excited. We started with about 30, 35 back in October 2021. And then we added another cohort in June of 2022 or just recently kind of like expanded it. We now have about 90 Limelight ambassadors, which is extremely exciting. They're from like 29 countries all over the world. They range in age and kind of identity, but just are like absolutely incredible. They are people who just really like, I think our LAs just like, they get it. They like believe in the vision. They understand like why we are trying to build what we are building. And they've had a very like formative experience themselves on Landing. And so, you know, it like filled a hole or a void in their life that felt very like maybe unexpected and meaningful. And they're very passionate about like translating that experience to other people within Landing's community. I think the number one thing that they do to like help support the overall like growth and health of Landing is like engaging the community that we do have, because again, there's like this magical moment where you post a board and somebody leaves a comment and you just feel like so good, or you enter the Discord for the first time and LA like welcomes you personally into that space. And I think that they are just so passionate about like upholding the culture and the community and the values and creating that like really warm, welcoming, inclusive space. And when you can create that for other people, they're of course going to be much more likely to like share about Landing with the people that they know in their lives, because they've had such a positive, like delightful experience. And so I think our LAs, like there's sort of a direct like impact of the work that they're doing, which is helping people have like just like a lovely experience within Landing's platform and community. Many of our creators, not just our Limelight ambassadors, but many Landing creators also share about Landing on external channels, whether that's on Instagram or TikTok, videos about making a board or what have you. And that's also like extremely impactful for us, that kind of organic sharing, because, you know, we're a small team, we're a small platform. We want to be growing, you know, organically with people who really believe what we believe. So that is also like, I think, a very impactful, and of course they might also tell their friends about Landing too in real life, they're real life friends. So I think there's many ways that LAs can impact the overall like growth and success of what we're building.
The only thing I'll add is that I think, and also Mina, unfortunately, we are going to have to hop in like a couple of minutes, if that's okay. But we can definitely follow up over email if there's like any other questions also. But one thing I'll add to that is that I think the Limelight ambassadors play a really crucial role in helping us grow in the right way and with the right kind of like community values, and with like the feeling of Landing passed down from like user to user. So to what Liz is saying about like making sure every new user has that awesome experience, like there's a lot of Landing that's about like the culture of it and the welcoming spirit and the feeling that everybody can come here to be themselves. And our Limelight ambassadors are like a really core part of making sure that those feelings and that like culture that we cultivated ourselves at the very beginning can scale and can be applied and like continue to exist in a very like intentional way with a much bigger user base too. So as we continue to grow, they do the really amazing work of making sure that Landing, you know, stays what we all want it to be as a community in terms of culture and values.
So that's all my questions for today. Thank you so much for chatting with me, for sharing what you believe in Landing, and just I was really happy with our chat.
Thank you so much. This was lovely.
Mina, they were such great questions. It was really fun to get to share. These were such thoughtful things to think about for us.
Thank you so much. You can just email me the recording. I'll edit like our chats between